They told us to rise. So we did. Even her. Even me. I hadn't seen her in months, but I knew the shape of her back. The way she stood taller when she wanted to appear innocent, like she'd never taken anything that wasn't hers. The judge entered. My hands were cold, but my voice wasn't shaking. I'd waited 3 years for this day, 3 years of silence, 3 years of people telling me to move on, to be civil, to let it go for the child's sake. But I hadn't let it go. Not really, because what do you call it when someone holds your baby, feeds your baby, names themselves Mom, while calling you just tired? What do you call it when they do it with a smile and everyone else applauds? You call it what it is, theft dressed as family. And now I was finally here. With a folder full of timelines, a lawyer by my side, and one small photo in my purse, a black and white picture, blurry, but perfect to me, an ultrasound. The first time I saw her, the only proof I ever needed that I was her mother long before anyone else got to hold her. The bailiff said, "Do you have anything to say before we begin?" I nodded, and then, after 3 years of silence, I finally said the only thing that ever mattered. 7 words, soft but solid. To the woman who took everything, I looked straight at her and said, "She was mine, before you ever were." I used to sit by the window, counting how many cars passed before my mum came back. Red ones meant 5 more minutes. Blue ones meant maybe she forgot again. She never really forgot. She was just tired. At least that's what my grandpa said. "She's working hard," he'd mumble, lighting another cigarette. "But she loves you, kiddo. That's what matters." When I was 6, she left for the last time, and no one ever told me where she went. I found out later she'd checked into a rehab centre 2 states away. She sent a postcard once, a cheap hotel image of some mountains, with my name misspelled, Ava. No message, just that. After that, I stopped waiting by the window, and I started pretending I didn't care. But there's something that happens when you grow up not knowing who's supposed to show up for you. You start clinging to anyone who smiles too long, any adult who calls you sweetheart with both hands on your shoulders. You mistake proximity for protection. By the time I was 11, I'd memorized the sound of people leaving. A door that closes a little too softly, a drawer that never gets refilled. So when I met Ethan, kind, steady Ethan, with a quiet voice and arms that made me feel small in a good way, I didn't fall in love. I dove. I didn't want romance. I wanted roots, a place to grow that no one could walk away from. And when I met his mother, well, she was all warmth and compliments. "You're such a calming presence," she said, cupping my hands at dinner. "Ethan's lucky. You're not like those loud girls." I laughed then. I didn't know it was a warning. I thought she saw me. I didn't realise she was measuring me, deciding how much of me to erase, one quiet judgment at a time. Funny how the people who seem the kindest are often the ones who undo you with the softest hands. But back then, I just felt safe for the first time in years. And when Ethan asked me to move in, I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe I finally have a family that won't leave. I didn't realise they wouldn't leave. They'd just slowly push me out. It started small. The kind of small you almost feel guilty noticing. She rearranged the kitchen. At first, I thought she was helping, but my spices disappeared. My labelled containers got replaced. My daughter's bottles were lined up like museum pieces. Sterile. Perfect. Hers. "She's just being helpful," Ethan said, kissing my cheek as he headed out the door. "She's raised 3 kids. Let her have fun." Fun. I bit my tongue when she corrected how I held the baby. I smiled when she rewrote the nap schedule and taped her version to the fridge. I didn't protest when she said, "Let me take the night shift, you look exhausted, dear." like kindness was a currency, and I was always in debt. Then came the baby shower she threw 2 weeks after my daughter was born. Not for me, for herself. Her name was on the invitations, celebrating grandmotherhood. I wasn't listed. I watched her circle the room, accepting hugs like royalty. People congratulated her while I stood in the corner wearing maternity jeans that still didn't fit right. Ethan didn't notice, or maybe he didn't want to. She just wants to feel included, he said. But I wasn't the one feeling excluded. I was the one vanishing. Every day, a little more of me got edited out. I didn't rock my baby to sleep anymore. His mum had her special lullaby. I didn't choose the onesie. She had a drawer labelled proper outfits. She even replaced the paediatrician I'd researched with Dr. Kendra, her old friend's daughter. She's just more experienced, Ethan told me. She raised you, remember? I wanted to scream. Exactly. She already had her turn. What about mine? But the more I resisted, the more I became difficult. She's hormonal, she'd whisper, loud enough for everyone to hear. New mums can be so sensitive. And when I cried alone in the laundry room one night, clutching my daughter's tiny sock like it was an anchor, I realised something. I wasn't part of this family anymore. I was a guest, a tolerated guest, with a slowly expiring invitation. It was 2:14 a.m., the kind of hour that only holds two things, babies and breaking points. I woke to silence. Not my daughter's cry, not even the rustle of sheets beside me, just the low hum of the dishwasher and the flickering hallway light we never fixed. I walked out and saw her, my mother-in-law, rocking my baby in the dark, humming a tune I didn't recognise, wearing my robe. She didn't flinch when she saw me, just smiled and said, she wouldn't stop crying. She needs someone calm. Then, like punctuation, I've got her. I didn't reply. I just walked over, extended my arms. But she held the baby tighter, as if to soothe me, not return her. She's finally asleep. Don't ruin that. And then she turned her body just enough to block me. That movement, so small, so practiced, broke something, not because she was cruel, but because she truly believed she was the better mother. That's what terrified me. Not the control, not the silence, but the confidence. She truly believed I was just a tired girl with too many feelings and not enough instincts. And Ethan, he never came out of the room. The next morning, I packed quietly. Diapers, formula, onesies just enough for a few days. My fingers trembled, but my heart didn't. I placed a handwritten note on the kitchen counter. She's my daughter. I'll come back when I feel safe. I didn't slam a door, didn't raise my voice, didn't make a scene. I just walked out holding my baby like a secret I wasn't going to share anymore. The first place we stayed was a sublet studio with walls so thin I could hear the neighbours cough. There was no crib, just a folded blanket tucked into a laundry basket. I'd place my daughter in it every night and sit beside her, knees tucked to my chest, listening to her tiny breaths like proof that I had made the right choice. Some nights, I doubted it. When she got sick with a fever and I couldn't afford the copay. When my shoes broke and I stuffed cardboard inside. When I stood in line at the food pantry, pretending I was picking up groceries for a friend. I didn't tell anyone where I went, not even my sister. Silence became my armour. Because if they couldn't find me, they couldn't shame me, and I couldn't risk anyone, especially her, trying to take my baby back. By day, I freelanced, copywriting for furniture shops, editing bios for startup bros on LinkedIn, whatever paid enough to stretch a week longer. I worked with my daughter on my lap, typing with one hand, feeding her with the other. Sleep was a theory, but every time she smiled, that gummy, sloppy grin, it reminded me I wasn't running, I was rebuilding, one diaper at a time. Eventually, I found a small apartment of our own, 2 rooms, no mould, a real crib. The first night she slept there, I stood in the doorway and just watched. She looked so small, curled up in her fleece onesie, thumb in her mouth, and I whispered, "We did it, baby. It's not much, but it's ours." The first check that made me cry wasn't big, just 600 dirhams. It came from a local parenting blog after I pitched an article titled, "How to Write Emails While Your Baby Eats Your Hair." I submitted it at 2 a.m. in pajamas stained with pureed peas, not expecting a reply. But they loved it, said it was raw, hilarious, and real. And just like that, they wanted more. From there, it snowballed. Another blog reposted, then a local magazine. Then a startup asked if I could ghostwrite a founder's story. Soon, I was waking up to DMs from women saying, "Your words made me feel seen." One of them was Claire, a single mom and editor who ran a small publishing agency. She emailed me out of the blue. "I read your piece on co-sleeping and chaos. You made me laugh and cry in the same paragraph. You ever thought of doing this full time?" I read that email 5 times. Then I cried. Not because of the opportunity, but because someone finally saw me as more than a cautionary tale. We started working together. Claire mentored me, paid me fairly, and never once made me feel like I had to apologise for having a toddler scream in the background. She called it ambient honesty. I bought my first laptop with that money, a used MacBook with a cracked corner, but it felt like power. With every invoice paid, every byline printed, I felt myself returning to a version of me I thought I'd lost in the nursery haze. I started dressing again, not just wearing clothes, but dressing. Blouses instead of stretched out tees, mascara, earrings, lip balm that smelled like vanilla. I wasn't hiding anymore. The first time someone called me Mom, I laughed. I was picking up a coffee between meetings, real meetings, with real clients who said things like brand alignment and scalable voice. But when the barista said it, "Here you go, Mom," it startled me. Not because it made me feel old, but because it made me feel solid, like I belonged somewhere. I wasn't the girl with a baby and no plan anymore. I was Ava Hart, a writer, a founder, and apparently someone whose name was on a door now. Claire and I launched a micro agency together. Nothing fancy. Just 2 laptops, a Slack channel, and a big Google sheet. We called it Kind and Loud. Because that's what we were, kind to our clients. Loud in our work. I ordered business cards. Not because I needed them, but because I needed to see my name printed in ink. I remember opening the box when it arrived. Tiny, thick rectangles of power. Ava Hart, co-founder, Hunchie's copy director. I traced the letters like they were braille, like they could teach my fingers to believe what my heart still doubted some days. Because some days, I still woke up with the fear she'd find me again. That she'd show up at daycare, at the park, at my front door. But instead of paralysing me, that fear became fuel. I learned contracts. I read custody law like bedtime stories. I documented everything. Emails, texts, call logs, doctor visits. Not just to protect us, but to prepare. Not for revenge, for return. Because I knew one day there'd be a knock, or a letter, or a courtroom. And when that day came, I wouldn't be the scared girl with a basket crib. I'd be Ava Hart, the woman who didn't just rebuild, she redefined. The envelope was cream, thick, heavy, like guilt. It didn't come by email or text or lawyer. It came in the mailbox with a handwritten name on the front, Ava Hart. No miss, no Ms., no dear. Just my name and hers on the return label, Margot Evans. I froze. Not out of fear, not anymore, but out of memory, because I remembered that handwriting. It used to label baby bottles and diaper bags and school folders as if possession meant love. I opened it with a kitchen knife, not because I was scared, because I didn't want to touch it with bare hands. Inside, a folded invitation, printed on thick cardstock. Liam's kindergarten graduation. Date, time, address, and beneath that, handwritten words. He asked if you'd come. We think it would mean a lot to him. Margot, no mention of court, no apology, no acknowledgement of the 3 years she kept him from me, just the implication that this was normal. Like we were family, like I'd just missed a few birthdays, not full years of firsts. I sat at the kitchen table, invitation in one hand, coffee gone cold in the other. What did this mean? Was she opening a door or setting a trap? Was he really asking for me? Or was this a test? Would he even remember my face? The invitation sat on the counter for 3 days, next to the magnet with a photo of Liam from the daycare I used to visit. He was smiling in the photo, holding a drawing of a son with the word Mom written in crooked letters. The drawing was old, a copy I'd taken with my phone before she shut down my access, but I stared at that son for 3 days before I made a choice. Not because I trusted her, but because I trusted him. I drove past the school 3 times. Didn't stop, didn't blink, just circled like a ghost haunting a past that didn't know me anymore. The 4th time, I parked, engine running, hands gripping the steering wheel like it could tell me what to do. On the passenger seat, the invitation. Creased from too much folding, worn like something read over and over, never truly accepted. I stared at the school building, red brick, colourful posters in the windows, and then I saw them. Tiny backpacks bouncing down the steps, kids laughing, mothers waving, and somewhere in that blur was Liam. My Liam. I hadn't said his name out loud in months, not because I'd forgotten, but because saying it hurt like a torn photograph you keep gluing but never whole again. I got out, didn't walk in, just stood by the tree at the corner of the lot like someone waiting for a bus that wouldn't stop. That night, I told Ryan. He looked up from his laptop, paused the spreadsheet, and said only this: "Do you want closure or connection?" I couldn't answer, because the truth was, I wanted both. I wanted to be his mother without being a soldier. I wanted to walk into that room and not feel like I was invading someone else's narrative. But the hardest part? I wasn't sure if I was doing this for Liam or for me, and maybe that was okay. Maybe healing isn't always selfless. Maybe sometimes you go back so you can stop wondering what it would have been like if you had. That night, I took the invitation and circled the date in red marker. It wasn't just a graduation. It was a beginning, or an ending, or maybe both. I didn't sleep much that night. Instead, I opened the drawer where I kept all the letters I never sent. There were dozens, some written on the backs of receipts, some typed and printed, then folded angrily, some just a name, Liam. I picked one, the one I wrote on his 5th birthday. It said, "You didn't disappear. You're just far from me now, but I still see you when I close my eyes. I remember how you used to kick your blanket off every night and sleep like a starfish. I hope you still do." I folded it again, this time with care, and placed it into a small envelope. Then I packed a box. Inside, that letter. A photo of us in the park, the bear he used to chew on its ear still a little ragged, and the family court documents I'd been building for 3 years. Ryan helped me print them, every statement, every notarized letter, every police report, therapist memo, missed visitation. He didn't ask questions. He just looked at me and said, "You only have to be brave for 1 hour. That's all it takes." I chose a blazer, not to impress, but to remind myself, I am no longer the girl who begged to be seen. I am the woman who documented, who survived, who built her own chair at a table that kept pretending she didn't belong. The hearing was 1 week after the graduation. I timed it that way on purpose, because if things went badly, I didn't want Liam's memory of me to be shaped only by court walls and custody terms. I wanted his first image of me, after 3 years, to be of a woman who showed up, who stood in the back, quiet but proud, who loved him enough to wait for the right moment. And now, the moment had come. The restaurant smelled like vanilla candles and buttered rolls. We were 10 minutes early. Ryan adjusted his cuffs and whispered, "You sure?" I didn't answer. I just walked in first. The hostess looked up, her eyes flickering toward the reserved name on the small clipboard, then toward me, then to Ryan. She blinked, forced a smile, and led us to the private room at the back. We passed a long mirror in the hallway. I caught my own reflection, hair pinned, blazer smooth, heels silent on the marble floor. I almost didn't recognize myself. The room was full, soft laughter, champagne flutes, the scrape of forks against porcelain. My mother-in-law stood near the centre, holding a wineglass like a trophy. Her voice was the first to pause, then the ripple spread. One cousin's head turned, then another. Liam was seated at the kids' table, face down in a drawing, a streak of crayon stretching past the paper's edge. He didn't see me yet, but my ex-husband did. He stood slowly, face unreadable, no welcome, no alarm, just a blink, as if trying to figure out if I was real. I kept walking. Ryan stayed a step behind, his hand light on my back, not guiding, just there. We reached the open end of the table. One empty chair remained. I pulled it out myself. No one offered. I sat, back straight, hands resting on the tablecloth, and I smiled, not out of spite, but out of certainty. I belonged here, not because they allowed it, but because I decided to. The silence stretched. Then my mother-in-law clinked her glass lightly and said, "Looks like we have a guest." No name, no welcome. Just that. A guest. The clink of silverware was the only soundtrack. No one asked why I was here, but no one talked about anything else. Ryan tried to soften the silence. He asked my cousin about her new job, nodded politely when no one answered, and took slow sips from his glass-like buying time. I focused on Liam. He was folding his napkin into small shapes, a triangle, then a crooked swan. I smiled at him gently, but he didn't look up, not yet. The server brought out the next course, a beet salad arranged like it was art, a drizzle of balsamic, not enough to taste. My mother-in-law commented on the presentation, loud enough for the whole table. So tasteful, simple things done right. She didn't look at me. She didn't have to. Every word was chosen. I kept my fork steady, cut each beet like it was the most important task in the world. Beside me, my ex-husband finally spoke. "This is unexpected." His voice was low, not angry, not warm, just there. I turned to him. Life is full of those. He didn't respond, but I saw his jaw tighten. Liam glanced up then, just for a second. His eyes met mine, uncertain, searching, and then he looked away quickly. My heart stuttered. I reached for the water glass before my hand could shake. Across the table, someone made a toast, not to me, not to family, but to the years ahead. May they bring peace. Peace. A word too big to sit comfortably in this room. I nodded along, smiled on cue, held my body in the shape of someone who wasn't unraveling. Ryan squeezed my hand under the table, a signal that I was still here, still whole, and for a moment, that was enough. Until she spoke again. So glad we could all be together, finally. Then she added, "Some of us anyway." Liam dropped his fork. It wasn't loud, just a soft clink on porcelain, But in that room, it might as well have been thunder. Everyone turned, his small hands clenched on the tablecloth. He looked at her, his grandmother, then at me. "Why did you say Mommy left me?" The air vanished. No one moved. My ex-husband stiffened. My mother-in-law froze, wineglass mid-air. Liam's voice was steady, too steady for a child. "You said she didn't want me." Tears blurred my vision. I hadn't told him yet. I was waiting for the right age, the right words, but he'd heard them, absorbed them, carried them. Ryan placed a hand on Liam's shoulder, firm but gentle. "She never left you," he said. "She was taken from you." The silence cracked. My mother-in-law spoke, tone sharp like broken crystal. "That's not what I said. You must have misunderstood." "No," Liam cut in, clear, unafraid. "I remember." His words didn't shake, but hers did. I sat up straighter. "For 3 years," I said, "I let you rewrite the story." She opened her mouth. I raised a hand. "No, you got to speak at baby showers. At birthdays, I wasn't allowed to attend. You painted yourself as the saviour." I turned to the others' relatives, friends who looked anywhere but at me. She called me unstable, told the court I was emotionally unfit because I cried after birth, said she had to protect Liam from my sadness. I inhaled slowly. She didn't protect him. She protected her fantasy. The table was still. Even the server paused by the door, holding a tray of cake no one wanted anymore. Then Liam whispered the words that would follow us into the courtroom weeks later. Words I didn't know he'd heard, didn't know he remembered. But he said them anyway. I drew a picture for her, and she threw it away. He looked at her. It said, "Mommy plus me." And just like that, the performance collapsed. She didn't defend herself, didn't reach for him. She just blinked once, twice. And I rose from my seat, not with rage, not with vengeance, but with the dignity of a mother who'd been erased for too long. Ryan followed silently. Liam took my hand, and we walked out. This time, no one stopped us. The air outside was cooler than I remembered. Liam's small hand curled into mine. We didn't say much, just kept walking. Behind us, the house buzzed faintly, a blur of stunned voices, clinking glasses, shifting chairs. But we didn't look back, not even once. At the end of the block, Ryan paused beside my car. He opened the door silently, then handed me something. A plain envelope, inside the court notification for our custody review hearing, stamped, filed. With everything we'd been building for, I didn't open it right away. Instead, I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out the drawing, the one Liam had made last year. "Mommy plus is me," written in clumsy, bold letters. 2 stick figures holding hands. He watched me trace the faded crayon lines. "She told me to draw her one too," he whispered. I looked down at him. "But I wanted to keep this one." I didn't answer, didn't need to. I tucked the drawing into my coat, close to my chest. Then I exhaled, slow and full. Ryan looked over. "You ready?" I nodded. We started the car. Halfway down the road, Liam looked up again. "Are we going to court now?" "Soon," I said. He leaned his head on my shoulder. "You don't have to be loud to be brave, right?" I smiled. "No, baby. Sometimes the quietest people are the ones who already won." We didn't go home that night. Not yet. Instead, we stopped by the apartment, the tiny one-bedroom I rented after everything fell apart. It smelled like lemon cleaner and old books. I sat on the floor, shoes still on, coat still wrapped around me. Liam lay beside me, tracing the window fog with his fingers. For the first time in a long time, there was no noise demanding to be answered. No false emergency, no gaslight wrapped in a smile, just quiet. And it didn't feel empty. It felt earned. The next morning, I found the old box. It had been sealed shut with packing tape marked "Do Not Open 2021", but I opened it anyway. Inside, hospital bracelets, Liam's first baby hat, my old nursing journal, and at the bottom, a folded letter I never remembered writing. It was addressed to myself, in the corner, my handwriting, shaky, uneven. From the week I came home from the hospital without Liam, I unfolded it slowly. He cried for hours after you left. I didn't know what to do, so I held him like you showed me. It wasn't my writing anymore. It was hers, my mother-in-law's. He finally slept on my chest. I sang that lullaby you hum when you're stressed. I think he knew it. There was no apology, no confession, just fragments of care I never knew existed. I sat on the floor for a long time, letter in one hand, hospital bracelet in the other, for all the manipulation, the control, the legal power she had wielded. There had also been a moment, maybe just one, when she had been scared too, when she didn't know how to raise a baby that wasn't hers, when she mimicked my lullaby because it was the only thing that worked. A small part of me wanted to rip the letter, burn it, but I didn't, because the person who wrote it was gone, replaced by the version of her that stood in courtrooms and smiled at judges. But this page, it was from before that version took over. I tucked it into my coat pocket, not to forgive her, but to remember that even monsters are sometimes just scared people in disguise, and remembering that doesn't make them right, but it makes me whole. The courthouse was mostly empty that afternoon. Rain tapped lightly against the windows. Even the receptionist had stepped out for lunch. I stood in the hallway outside the mediation room, just me and the hum of the vending machine down the corridor. In my coat pocket, the letter, the bracelet, and a folded drawing Liam had made just last week. It was us, me, holding his hand. He'd written, "I'm safe with you." The S in safe was backwards. I walked into the mediation room, not because I had to. The judge had already ruled. Shared custody with full placement returned to me. Her visitation rights would be reviewed yearly. She wouldn't lose everything, but she'd no longer control everything. She was still seated there, at the long table, lipstick fresh, posture perfect, next to her lawyer, who was packing up his briefcase. She looked up, surprised. "I thought it was over," she said. "It is," I replied softly. I stepped forward, pulled out the envelope, placed it on the table in front of her. Her fingers hovered, but didn't touch it. "What is it?" she asked. "My grief," I said. "And yours." Then I added Liam's drawing, folded gently, and the bracelet. "It's not a threat," I continued. "It's what you tried to carry, but it was never yours to hold." Her eyes flicked to the letter. For the first time, her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I didn't wait for her to speak. I turned, walked toward the door, and just before stepping out, I paused. "He doesn't hate you," I said without looking back. "But he knows who his mother is." Then I left. No slamming doors, no applause, just a quiet hallway and the sound of my heels becoming steady again. I sat in Liam's room that night, folding his tiny t-shirts into neat stacks, a routine I hadn't done in 3 years. His favourite plush dinosaur was curled at the corner of his bed, missing one button eye. I smiled. That smile surprised me, because I remembered the last time I touched that toy, and it had broken me. I picked it up again, ran my thumb over the fabric. It still smelled faintly like lavender, the scent I used to put on his pillows when I needed him to sleep through the night. And just like that, a memory returned. That afternoon, that day. She had come early, without calling, said she was just helping. Liam had been crying. He didn't want his diaper changed by anyone else, but she took him anyway and shut the door behind her. I stood outside the nursery, hand trembling on the doorknob, listening to him scream my name. I had frozen. Because I had been told not to make scenes, because she said I was too emotional, because my husband had told me to pick my battles. But now, holding that same toy, I didn't feel that helpless version of me anymore. I felt something else, pity and distance, because now I saw the full picture. Not just her taking over, but me, giving away my voice, not because I was weak, but because I was exhausted. And now I wasn't tired anymore. I tucked the toy under Liam's blanket. It didn't matter if she ever understood. He did. That was enough. The past was still there, but it no longer owned me. It was just before sunrise when I heard the knock on the kitchen door. She had stayed, even after the hearing, even after I didn't look at her once. I opened it, not because I wanted to, but because I was no longer afraid to. She stood there in her burgundy coat, clutching a tin of lemon cookies, the same kind she used to bring just for Liam. I didn't speak. Neither did she. The silence was heavy, but different. She finally said, "I didn't think you'd ever let me see him again." I looked at her, really looked. For the first time in years, she looked smaller, not physically, emotionally, like someone who had spent too long pretending to be in control. I wanted to scream, wanted to ask her how she could rip apart a family and still show up with cookies, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "You don't have to see him to know he's loved." She blinked twice, then said, barely audible, "I did what I thought was right." I nodded. I know. And I'm not angry anymore, but I'm also not the same. Her hand tightened on the tin. She didn't say sorry. I didn't ask for it. Because forgiveness isn't waiting for an apology. It's releasing yourself from the weight of what they'll never admit. I held the door open a little wider. She didn't step in. She didn't ask to. And for the first time, I didn't want her to. I just wanted peace. And somehow, I already had it. That night, after Liam had gone to bed, after the dishes were done and the silence returned to the house, I opened the hallway closet. There, tucked behind a stack of winter blankets, was the old shoebox, the one with the little red car, the one she gave him on that first Christmas before everything went wrong. I hadn't thrown it out, but I hadn't looked at it in years. I took the box out, sat on the floor, and opened the lid. The car was still there, scratched, wheels stiff, but still bright red. There was also a photo, faded, of Liam in her arms as a baby, laughing. I didn't cry. I just sat with it for a long time. Then, quietly, I put the photo in a new frame, left the box as it was. The next morning, while Liam was still asleep, I walked to her house, not to talk, not to reconcile, just to return something that never really belonged to me. I placed the box on her doorstep. Taped to the top was a note. "He remembers you, but he also knows who stood by him." And I walked away. Didn't ring the bell. Didn't wait. I passed by the window. Just as the curtain moved slightly, she had seen me. Or maybe just the back of me. That was enough. Ghosts don't need closure. They just need to fade. And I had finally stopped haunting myself. Liam asked me once, "Mum, why did you wait so long?" I didn't answer him right away, just smiled, tucked his blanket in a little tighter, and kissed his forehead. But in my heart, the answer was simple. Because I needed him to know that when I stood up, I wasn't just fighting her. I was fighting the silence that told me I didn't matter, that I wasn't family because I didn't play by their rules, that a mother's love could be measured by age, or power, or bloodline. That silence took years from me. It nearly made me believe that walking away was weakness. But the truth, it was strength. Not loud strength, not courtroom strength, just the kind that builds quietly. Through nights with fevers, through birthday cupcakes, through whispered bedtime stories only 2 people would remember. She took my baby for a while, but she didn't take what made me his mum. That morning in court, when Liam said those 7 words, he gave them back to me. Every night now, he asks for one last hug. Just one more. And every night, I give it to him. Not because I'm trying to make up for what was taken, but because I know he'll never have to wonder who stood by him. And me? I don't need her apology. I have his voice, and I have mine again. Tell me, have you ever had to wait to say the one thing they never let you say before?